Guys, what are we doing out here?
I found something earlier, and you guys have to see it.
Gosh, it's freezing.
Come on, guys, it's not that cold out.
Dude, and you're in shorts.
So what is it?
Come over here and watch this.
Now, I'm no mind reader, but I'm guessing a couple things are true about you right about now. First of all, I'm guessing that you are a little distracted. You're probably thinking about the 95 things that you've got to do between now and Christmas, 2 days, right? You got to run to the store, wrap some presents, cook some food, visit some relatives, and church is just one of the 95 things that you've got to get done. You might have had a little trouble getting here this morning. You might have a child sitting on your lap. So I'm guessing you're a little distracted this morning. The other thing that I'm guessing is true is that you are tired. Can I get an amen? I mean, there's only one word that can possibly describe what we attempt to do and accomplish during the month of December each year, and that word is insanity, right? I mean, we go and we redecorate our entire house inside and out. We think up everybody we've ever met and we buy presents for them. And we go and we think of everybody we've ever met and we make out cards because we've just got so much free time on our hands. And we break every cookie we've ever heard of. We consume 3 months worth of calories in 1 month time. And then just because we've got so much free time and no stress, no anything else, let's let the kids out of school for a couple of weeks, right? It's no wonder we're tired and worn out. So here's what I want to do as we get started this morning. I want all of us just to take a collective, big, deep breath, okay? So on the count of 3, I want us all just to take a big, deep breath and exhale, okay? Let's try this together. 1, 2, 3. Didn't that feel good? Let's do that one more time, okay? 1, 2, 3. And maybe you just whisper a little prayer, God, slow me down. And the reason I want to encourage us to do that is because these next few minutes might be the only time that some of us slow down long enough to really think about and reflect and ponder the real meaning of what it is that we are celebrating. So I hope that you'll do that. Good morning and welcome to West Cobb Church. My name is Howard Kepke. So glad that you are here today. If you don't know, I'm a connections pastor here, helping get you connected in ministry teams and groups and local global missions. I also work with Noonday Association of Churches, helping about 130 churches across the north side of Atlanta with all different kinds of things they're working on and trying to figure out. And I'm just so glad that you came and decided to worship with us this morning. Now, this past month, Pastor Stan has been doing this wonderful series called The Promise. And he's been laying out for us the prophecies in the Old Testament and the promises of God and how Jesus coming that first Christmas is the fulfillment of all of those promises. And that Jesus helped establish this new covenant so that we can receive all the promises of God of love and mercy and comfort and strength and help and forgiveness for our sins and so on. And it's been this really great series. But the other thing that is that Jesus coming is the fulfillment of God's promise of grace. Now, West Cobb Church is a grace-filled church. We talk a lot about grace around here. A little while back, we did this whole church-wide freedom series study. We're talking about grace. We're all about grace here. And many years ago, when I was a kind of a new Christian, the guy who was my pastor, I still consider him to be one of my pastors, Dan Sutherland, kind of explained it to me this way, and he was contrasting mercy and grace. And maybe you've heard something along these lines before, but here's what he told me. He said, Howard, mercy is not getting what you deserve. In fact, if you're tracking in your notes, you might want to jot that down. Mercy is not getting what you deserve. Now, I am a wretched sinner. You're probably perfect, but I am a wretched sinner. Much like the Apostle Paul, the things I want to do, I don't do. The things I don't want to do, those are the things that I do. I've said for years that the only reason the Apostle Paul could claim that he was the chief of all sinners is because Howard Kepke wasn't around yet. You know what I'm saying? So I am a wretched sinner. Now, what I deserve is punishment for my sin. What I deserve is God not being very happy with me and again, punishing me for my sin, the things that I do wrong. What I deserve is for a holy, righteous, and perfect God to want nothing to do with me. What I deserve is to have God separate me from him for eternity in a place called hell. That's what I deserve. But because of God's mercy, I can make a decision to avoid those things, to not receive those things that I most definitely do deserve. However, grace is getting what you do not deserve. You might want to jot that down. I encourage you to take some notes today. Inside your worship guide, a lot of great information about our church. Backside, some notes. There's a pen in your chair back. Put those to good use today. But grace is me getting the things that I do not deserve. Again, as a wretched sinner, what I don't deserve is to have God's love and mercy and forgiveness and strength and help and hope and all these things in my lives. What I don't deserve is for a holy, righteous, and perfect God to call me his child. What I don't deserve is to have God actively involved in helping me in my everyday life. What I do not deserve is to spend eternity in heaven with him for eternity. But because of God's grace, I can receive those things that I most definitely do not deserve. Now, today I want us to switch gears just a little bit. Again, Pastor Stan's done a great job laying out the prophecies, the promises, and how Jesus is the fulfillment of all these things, establishing the new covenant and so on. But my question I want us to wrestle with today is, now what? Okay, we've heard it, we've got it, it's here. Now what? And today for a few minutes, I want us to talk about how you and I can and should respond to Christmas, to Christ coming, to the fulfillment of those promises, to the new covenant, how you and I can respond. And I want us to contrast that with some of the responses of some of the people who were in the very first Christmas story. Are we tracking? All right, so in your notes, the first one is the innkeeper. The innkeeper. Now, this innkeeper will be forever, throughout eternity, known as the person who said, "No room for you," to the baby Jesus, right? Little Seinfeld reference there for you. No room for you, right? So he'll be forever known as this. In fact, in Luke chapter 2, verse 7, it says, Mary wrapped him in clothes and placed him in a manger because there was no room for them in the inn. Now, how many of you have ever been a part of a Christmas play or pageant before? Some of you? Yeah. Well, it reminds me of a story I heard one time about Big Bad Wally. Now, Big Bad Wally was kind of a slow type. He was not very communicative. He was kind of clumsy. He was not good with his words. And every year he had a part in the Christmas play, but he always had a very small, non-speaking part. One year he was a donkey. One year he was a shepherd. Well, one year they come to him and say, "Wally, we want you to be the innkeeper." And his eyes just lit up. He said, "We want you to be the innkeeper. And you've got one line, Wally. When Mary and Joseph come across the stage and they knock on the door, you open the door. Joseph is going to ask, is there room for us in the inn? And your one line, Wally, is, there's no room in the inn for you. Wally, can you do this?" And he's like, yes. He was so excited. I mean, he dreamed about his line. He practiced his line. He nailed it in all the practices and dress rehearsals. And then it's showtime. And here comes little Mary and Joseph walking across the stage. And little Mary's got a pillow stuffed under her robe, making her look very pregnant. And they come to the door. They knock on the door. Wally opens the door. And little Joseph says, "Is there room for us in the inn?" And Wally froze. I mean, completely froze. He's looking at Joseph. He's looking at Mary. He's looking at her belly. He's looking at Joseph. He's looking at Mary. He's looking at her belly. And he knows the line. He just can't bring himself to say it. So Joseph again is like, "Is there room for us in the inn?" The director's behind the screen going, "There's no room in the inn for you." But still nothing. And Wally, again, he's just got this panic-stricken look on his face. He's looking at Joseph, he's looking at Mary, he's looking at her belly. And finally, Joseph is like, Wally, is there room in the inn for us? And Wally blurts out, oh, sure, you can have my room, right? And the crowd leapt to their feet and erupted in applause and cheers. And it was remembered as the greatest Christmas show they'd ever had. But you know what? Sadly, for too many of us, we get so caught up in the stuff, in the busyness of Christmas, that we fail to make room for Christ. And I hope and pray in response to these promises fulfilled, in response to the Christ at Christmas, that even with 2 days left, that you're gonna find some ways to make room for Christ. The next response I want us to look at is Joseph's. Now, Joseph's response was one of total respect. And I'd like us to read Matthew chapter 1, verse 24 off the screen here. Let's read this together. When Joseph woke up, he did what the Lord had commanded him. Now, please do not underestimate the importance of that. Joseph had gotten word that Mary is pregnant. He's thinking, you know what? I didn't cause that. And if I didn't cause that, who did cause that? I mean, Mary, you got some explaining to do, right? And Mary comes up with an explanation that's been tried many, many times over the years, never been true except for this once, and says, it was God. And Joseph, not knowing what to do, decided to trust God. An angel of the Lord appeared to him and said, Joseph, she's telling the truth. That baby is of God, and you need to keep her and marry her. So Joseph's response was one of total respect and obedience. And then there's Mary's response. And Mary's response was one of reflection. You know, one of reflection. In Luke 2:19, it says, but Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. I love that. Pondered them in her heart. Now, do you know why we don't do much reflection at Christmas time? Again, we're way too busy. We're running to the mall, we're shopping, we're wrapping, we're cooking, relatives, company Christmas parties, all these kinds of things. And I really do commend you for carving out an hour today to just come and worship and reflect. But way too often we don't do that. Now, Dan Sutherland, who I mentioned earlier, his wife Mary had this great tradition that we stole for a number of years. And her tradition was, as a way to just kind of make room for Christ and reflect and so on, was that every year before the kids were allowed to open up any presents, the family would gather. She would bring out a birthday cake with one candle in it. And the whole family had to go around and just share some things they were thankful to God for, some things maybe that God had taught them or shown them or done in their life that year. And then after this really cool time of just sharing and reflecting, the whole family would sing Happy Birthday, Jesus. They'd blow out that candle, and then it was gift time. But it was just a really cool way for them to just kind of go, time out. It ain't about the tree, it ain't about the gifts. Jesus is what this is about. And I would encourage you to maybe get creative and find some ways to make room for Christ and to do some reflecting and remembering this Christmas. Then there are the shepherds. And the shepherds' response was rejoicing, right? Rejoicing. Luke chapter 2, verse 20 says, the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things they had heard and seen. I mean, they go, they see the baby, they come back and they're just rejoicing and celebrating and praising God. Now, I love these guys because if there is anybody in the Christmas story that I can relate to, it's the shepherds. Just simple, common, working guys. And I'm sure when the angel came and extended the invitation to them, they're like, us? We're not royalty. We're not government officials. We're not anybody important. We're lowly sheep herders. You have anything to wear? I don't have anything to wear. Maybe it's okay to wear this. We got invited, right? And these guys find their way to the party of all eternity. And I hope that you are rejoicing this Christmas. And then there's the wise men. And the wise men's response was one of redirection. I mean, they redirected their lives. They put everything on hold. They carved out a big chunk of time. They traveled a great distance to come and see the baby king. And then they went back a different way. Now, don't underestimate that. They had been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, if you remember the story. Herod had instructed them, the king could have killed them for going back a different way because he had instructed them to come back and report to him what they had found under the guise that he was going to go worship the baby king, when in fact he was planning to kill the baby king. So these wise men risked everything, and they redirected the entire course of their lives. And can I contend today that maybe, just maybe, that's what Christmas is really all about right there. It is experiencing and encountering God, Jesus, in such a profound way that the entire course of our lives is redirected. We've got to choose our response at Christmas and any time of year. Now, this is going to take a moment of honesty, okay? And I don't want you to say the answer out loud, okay? But I just want you to think about the answer to this question as it relates to yourself. Have you been in a ho, ho, ho mood or a bah humbug mood this Christmas? I want you to think about that. Ho, 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 or bah humbug. Have you been caught up in the generosity of Christ, helping others, our Christmas offering here, and so on? Or have you been a Scrooge? You know, have you been caught up in the joy of the season or the stress of the rush? Now, with that in mind, I want you to fill this in on your notes. There's a section there for you to fill this in with your personal answer. And that is that this Christmas season, I have been blank, but now I choose to be blank. How would you personally answer that? Now, if you're not sure how to answer that first one, turn and ask the person next to you. They can help you with this, okay? Because some of us have been cranky and stressed and worried and rushed and all these kinds. No. As we focus this Christmas on a manger from 2,000 years ago, we need to change our response. So again, this Christmas I have been blank, but now I choose to be blank. How would you answer that? Listen, there really are only two responses to Christ, whether it's Christmas or any other time. The first is that if you are a seeker, that you would receive him. Now, what do I mean by seeker? I mean that you're like the wise men. They were seeking God. They were searching for God. You may or may not have come to faith yet, believe yet, but you've not yet had that moment, that life-changing encounter. And if you're a seeker, you need to choose to receive him. By receive, again, that free gift, those promises fulfilled, Christ, mercy, grace, forgiveness, all of that. You need to choose to receive that. And if you're a seeker today, John chapter 1, verse 12 says, to all who receive him, to those who believe in his name, he gives the right to become children of God. Folks, we can make the choice through Christ, through Jesus, through Christmas, through this new covenant, through this fulfilling of God's promises, we can be children of God. So if you're a seeker, I challenge you and encourage you to receive him. But if you're a follower, you need to choose to recommit. You need to choose to recommit. Now, here's what I mean by that. Many of us in this room today, we've chosen to follow Christ before. We've gotten saved, whatever terminology you want to use. But that was kind of like this one time, this one moment thing, right? But then do you know what happens? Life happens. Challenges happen, difficulties happen. We get distracted, we get off course, our priorities get out of whack. And I would contend that this commitment is something that we need to go back and do again and again and again. We walk away, we drift away, we lose our focus, whatever. And I would contend that we have to, the Bible says, choose this day whom you will serve. And I believe many times that is a daily commitment. God, I surrender to you again. God, I commit to you again. I commit to your mission. I commit to your gospel. I commit to your purposes. I commit to you again. And I would just encourage us, if you are a follower, that you need to recommit. Matthew 22:37 says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind. Did you do that every day this past week? Probably not. Again, and sometimes I would contend when life's happening and storms are hitting and challenges are coming, that might be a commitment that we need to make a couple times a day. Can we be real? But we need to make that commitment. Now, sometimes in our home, I don't know about you, again, you're probably perfect. I'm a wretched sinner. But in our home sometimes, it just seems like during the month of December, man, we just work and work and work and work and work and work and work towards Christmas. And then on Christmas morning, there's just kind of this explosion that happens, Just gifts and bows and boxes and wrapping paper and just stuff everywhere. Well, one year after the explosion, my kids are up in their rooms playing with their stuff. I've gotten dinner underway, and now I'm out in the living room cleaning up the mess, the debris from the explosion. And as I got a trash bag and I'm picking everything up, I remember looking over at the empty tree and thinking, something's just not right. Something's missing. Here we are, it's Christmas, Jesus' birthday, and we have celebrated this by giving gifts to everybody else. But what can I give to Jesus? And then I did something that some people might think was kind of dumb. I walked over and I picked up a bow off the ground. And then I began making my way over to the tree. And you'll have to go with me because this bow is not cooperating. And then I got down on my knees. And I put that bow on my head. I'm glad nobody was there with a camera in that moment. And I just simply said, Jesus, I am yours. Jesus, I am yours. I mean, I really don't have anything else to give him. He's already got everything else. All I've got is me. But the really cool thing is, that's all he wants. He wants you. He wants your heart. He wants your soul. He wants your mind. He wants you committing to him and his cause and his purposes every day. So again, as we prepare, starting this evening with our Christmas Eve services into tomorrow and then Christmas Day, as we're celebrating the birth of Christ, I want to challenge you, if you're a seeker, that today is the day you need to receive him. And if you're a follower today, again, Stan's done a great job laying out all these promises and the prophecies and how Jesus has fulfilled all this. Our response as followers should be that we would recommit. And I want to give us all an opportunity to do that right now. In just a moment, I'm going to lead us in a prayer. And I want to encourage you, if today you need to receive, you need to make a first-time commitment, that you would maybe repeat this prayer after me, quietly to yourself. You don't have to say it out loud. And there's nothing magical or mystical about this, so you can just tell God whatever is on your heart. But I encourage you to make that decision and receive Christ this Christmas. Also kind of wrapped up in that same prayer we're all going to do together, I hope, is for us who are followers, that we would recommit to Jesus and his cause and his mission here on this earth. So let's all bow our heads for just a moment. And I want to encourage you to pray this or something like it. Maybe you pray, God, I've blown it. I've messed up. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've sinned and I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I believe that Jesus came that first Christmas, that he lived 33 years, that he died on a cross, and that he rose again so that I could have a personal relationship with you, so I could have you actively involved in my everyday life, and so that one day when this life is over, I can spend eternity in heaven with you. And God, I want that. So right now, I'm opening up my heart to you. I'm asking you to come inside. I'm asking you to take control. I want you to call the shots. And I'm asking you to change me, to help me become the person that you have created me to be. God, I commit to you. I commit to the cause of your son, Christ. And I commit to this great mission of reaching the whole world with the gospel. It's not about me. It's all about you. Lord, I am yours.